Good afternoon, and you're very welcome to the Football Hour, or we should call it the Irishman, the Englishman, and the Scotsman. We're not sure which order, but you're very welcome on this Sunday afternoon, and it is indeed Champions League final day between Bayern Munich and Paris Saint-Germain. I'm joined by Kevin. Hello,
hey,
Kev.
Great to be here again. Thanks.
And the Scottish answer to Stato, Fino.
Thanks very much for having me, JP.
Right, it's been a month since we've been here, guys, and a lot of great feedback on the last show. We're actually very lucky that this show lands on the day of the Champions League final, and I have to say, a lot of these Champions League finals can be anti-climax, like last season, for example, Liverpool against Tottenham, you know, a dodgy penalty.
There was nothing wrong with that.
There was a dodgy penalty early on. Salah got it. It was a boring game. It's wide open. You know, the contrast in styles and the team couldn't be more different. Free-flowing football, goals galore we're hoping for. What's ahead today on the show? We're going to do a little match preview on, obviously, the final. Then we're going to run through, obviously, the players to watch. We'll pick our players to watch for the final. Our favourite game in the Champions League, although one of us has a game that wasn't actually in the Champions League. It's called the European Cup. That's how far away the Rangers have been. And then we'll have a look at the new format. You know, does it suit? Does it not suit this one-off games as opposed to two games, you know, home and away? We're going to have a little chat about Manchester City as well. And then we'll have a look at the new Premier League season. So, Bayern Munich against Paris Saint-Germain at 9 o'clock tonight, Central European time. Should be, hopefully, is one of the best Champions League finals of our era. So, Bayern are in the final for the 11th time. Only Real Madrid have been in more finals at 16. That's pretty impressive, lads.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you compare that to PSG, and it's their first chance to get their hands on the Champions League trophy or the European Cup. And you do wonder whether or not that kind of experience might tell tonight.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, Bayern are this, incredible, have this iconic status in the European Cup. And actually, it's great, isn't it? I mean, you were talking earlier on about the days of the European Cup versus the Champions League. But, I think back to those great, European Cup campaigns, and you look at that history of 74, 75, 76, and then coming back and all those heartbreaks. I think it's really interesting, though. Sometimes it's better maybe to come in without that kind of experience, because I don't know. I just think, they've won 5 finals, they've lost 5 finals, Bayern Munich. They've got the experience of both. It could go either way. Paris are coming in, Paris Saint-Germain coming in, and you just sort of think sometimes it's better just to come in as the newcomer, isn't it? Don't you think?
On the other hand, Bayern are they're on fire. They've now become 29 games unbeaten. They've just won the German treble, which these days is no mean feat. There's Dortmund, obviously a good team, and there are a few other teams around there that can beat them. But 29 games unbeaten. They're scoring for fun. Lewandowski's got 55 this season, which is out of this world. They basically are a German scoring machine. The win against Barcelona was scary. 8-2 in a one-off game against Barcelona is absolutely bonkers. And Leroy Sané is on his way next season, which makes him even more frightening. But I did notice in the Lyon game, in the first 10 minutes, Memphis Depay, who you might remember from playing for Manchester United, really should have scored. And they hit the inside of the post. Basically, they could have been 3-0 up in the first 5 minutes, yeah? Now, Bayern are playing a mega high line, which destroyed Barcelona, because I don't feel that Barcelona, even though the world's greatest player, the best player I've ever seen live, I've seen him in Dublin, Messi, Suarez, Griezmann, I don't feel that they had the pace to punish the high line. But there is a team in PSG who certainly can and certainly have got the pace. Fino?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at how we'd expect Bayern to line up tonight, you imagine that they're going to try and overload that attacking third, and as a result, that high line pushes up probably onto the halfway line. But as you say, with Barcelona, they're not blessed. That front three of Barcelona, whilst they are very impressive, they're not blessed with blistering pace. Whereas if you look at Mbappe, potentially the fastest player in world football, Neymar has a bit of pace about him, and Di Maria as well causes havoc on potentially either wing. You really do wonder whether or not Bayern are going to have to sit back a little bit more and invite a bit more pressure onto them, rather than constantly kind of defending from the front.
I mean, you're probably right, they probably will sit back a bit more, but I really hope they don't, actually. I think looking at this, I'm like the ultimate neutral in this game, right? I honestly don't mind. I don't have a stake in this game at all. I just really hope that what we see are these two teams which have this potential to wreak havoc against each other, to be able to play true to form. And I think it will be wonderful if they do play true to form, that they don't sit back, because as I think you were hinting at earlier on, JP, so often we build up these finals and you think it's going to be marvellous, but there's so much at stake, isn't there, that you tend to find that this fear of failure starts to set in. And I just hope that for once we see both these sides just say, look, we're good enough to win this, let's go at each other, and then that way you may see a great final.
And you don't have to look that far back in history. I mean, just look at Friday's Europa League final with Inter and Sevilla. They were going at it, hammer and tongs, back and forth, and it created such a spectacle for the neutral. And you do have to wonder whether or not that kind of behind closed doors, one-off game kind of thing is allowing the players to be a bit more expressive, and hopefully we see that tonight as well.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, Bayern obviously are playing this high line, and it's so hard because they give you no time on the ball. Barcelona had no time on the ball. It was kind of a little bit of a throwback to Liverpool last season, where they were just on you, dogged. And when they get the ball, like Bayern get the ball, it's straight away attack. How are we going to attack? Get the ball out to the wide players. Gnabry, who I'll talk about in a while, Perisic, Alphonso Davies, has got the speed of Carl Lewis, the Olympic sprinter. They just attack straight away. But defensively, because of the high line, they are a little bit vulnerable. I hope it's going to be a really high-scoring open game where Bayern keep going the way they're going and attack and play the high line, and PSG will punish them from getting the ball on the break and the pace of the front three. Looking at some crazy result like a 4-4 draw would be fantastic, Kev.
What I think is really interesting, though, is you look at these two teams, and what's really weird is I get the feeling, I don't know about you or your listeners really, but I get the feeling that Bayern are the more loved of these two teams, and that's like really weird to me, because I was based in Germany for a while working in football, and like everyone hated Bayern, right? Everyone seems to hate Bayern, and then you've got this for once, maybe not for once, because I think maybe it started with that Germany team that won the World Cup, and we haven't spoken particularly about Thomas Muller. But, you look at a play like that, everyone loves Thomas Muller. Like, everyone wants a Thomas Muller in their side. And I think maybe just like that Germany team got a lot of neutrals on side. I think there's quite a lot of neutrals now really kind of love this Bayern Munich team and the way that they play. And it's a bit weird, though, having said that, lived in Germany, it's weird to think of people loving Bayern. But then you've got the other thing about Paris Saint-Germain, who, perhaps we won't get into this, I don't know if we will or not, but for other reasons you might not love them. Just
to counteract you, Kevin, I'll just remind you where you live. We live in Austria. And everybody hates Bayern. Everybody hates Germany and Thomas Muller. So, I do get a lot of that from the locals here. But no, they're great to watch. And I also feel like it's kind of an organic team in the sense that, how they're grown and they don't spend much money compared to the superpower of Paris Saint-Germain. Fino?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very easy to look at Bayern and see this kind of absolute machine that will constantly churn out very consistent results. They're all-conquering domestic, but so are PSG, and I think a lot of people look at the French league and maybe don't give it the credit that it deserves. This is only the fifth French team that have got to the Champions League final, but only one of them's won it, so you wonder whether or not that big occasion is going to get to them. You'd hope not, with Tuchel at the helm and there being players there that have performed in big games, that they'll be able to bring that win out. But as Kevin maybe alluded to, they've spent over €1 billion on players. They need to perform. Their investors or their owners are looking for that elusive Champions League trophy, and arguably you'd still say that they're not favourite to take it home.
I think it's the economics of football are different in different countries sometimes as well. And let's not forget about Bayern. They don't tend to spend like mega amounts of money on transfers, that's true. But they do pay significantly higher wages than anyone else in Germany, which does mean that they can pretty much sign, or at least they can outbid virtually everyone in terms of those wages that they offer the players. And that has made a difference.
I find it a bit humiliating, actually. I mean, the Bayern, compared to the rest of the teams in the world, when they're announcing a new transfer, i.e. a Mario Götze or a Lewandowski, the signing from their major rival, Dortmund, is announced 3, 4, 5 months before the end of the season, which is absolutely crazy. And I wonder what's changed between this season and last, because I might be wrong, could have been the quarter-final that Bayern were beaten by Liverpool, wasn't it? Or...
I have some vague recollection of that.
Maybe along the way, yeah, but it was quite easy for Liverpool, I think, and better team in both legs. This season, they've just been... they're really... And lockdown, does it affect the team? Does it make them better? I mean, Bayern weren't amazing in the Bundesliga before lockdown, before the corona happened. They were neck and neck with Dortmund, and the last couple of games, it could have been there. Either one could have won it. And then after the lockdown, they've just been this machine who are steamrolling everybody, banging in goals non-stop, and they're so hard to play against. They give you no time on the ball. I've read something recently how Bayern, of course, won the Champions League in 2013, and a German journalist said that, look, that team was fantastic with Schweinsteiger, Robben, Ribéry, but a lot of guys on that team, those big names, would not get into this team today.
I think that's right. I think, I guess you have to give so much of the credit to Hansi Flick, right? So to come in and just really turn that team around. I can't honestly think of the last time that someone has come through like that in managerial terms since Vicente Del Bosque at Real Madrid. And he was given a chance. My memory might be playing tricks on me, but I think it was after John Toshak got sacked. But I might be. Don't quote me on that. I might be wrong. But anyway, came through, turned the team around, and turned them into this machine, this absolute winning machine, in a way that just seemed impossible for a manager who had absolutely no experience, who was just someone who'd come from inside the club. And I think Hansi Flick has done something incredible. And there's one thing you said earlier on, which is quite right, of course, about the fact that they're unbeaten in such a long time, but it's that they've kept winning. And we talked about this last time. It's not enough to be unbeaten anymore. You can be unbeaten, for all season and not get near winning a league championship anymore. It's this relentlessness of just winning game after game after game. And again, you said before, they've scored so many goals, but they just have that. We are going to win every single game we play. And that's something that's, it's breathtaking in its own way, and certainly so admirable. And like I say, I think that's why so many neutrals, maybe outside Germany and Austria, but certainly so many neutrals are warming towards this Bayern Munich side.
Definitely not here in Salzburg in Austria, that's for sure, Kev. But they're also very good to watch. Let's go back a year. Everyone knows Lewandowski, everyone knows Muller, or even, I'll go into Gnabry in a while, but Gnabry, Perisic, Goretzka, this guy, also Alphonso Davies, who you'll come into in a while, they're an absolute unit, and it's typical German just to have, the Germany team that won the World Cup. They had no real superstars, but they all worked as a team. They work on the ball, off the ball, and they're just so efficient. It's a typical, kind of German mentality. Bayern, in a sense, it's for a while, even though Dortmund are there, and there was Wolfsburg a couple of years ago. Essentially, as regards to one team winning the league every year, it almost is like that in Germany, the same as it is in France. Paris Saint-Germain, I think, have they won the treble again this year, or did they win the cup final?
Yeah, well, they won the Coupe de France on penalties against Lyon, and when I saw that result happening in real time, I thought that's not a great result, and that doesn't necessarily bode well for PSG in their Champions League challenges. But we then saw how Lyon did so well, getting to the semi-finals, and actually in the first kind of 20 minutes really holding their own against Bayern. I think what's going to be interesting for PSG is, first of all, how they take to the occasion, which I think will be so much easier without fans and without all the rigmarole that goes alongside Champions League final week. Also, who's fit and who's not fit. Keylor Navas maybe won't be in between the sticks. He's been there, done that, got the t-shirt. He knows how to win these big games. And sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes all you need is an inspired keeper. And obviously they have a great one in Neuer, but you really hope that somebody's able to switch that, flick that switch on and really become a world-class player during the final.
I think that's right. I think the goalkeeper thing, there hasn't been all that much talk about it, but it's really interesting, isn't it? And I think if Keylor Navas is fit, I think I would go for PSG to actually pull off a little bit of a surprise and win it, because I just think, if in doubt, choose which team has the best goalkeeper. And sorry, best might not be the right word, but Manuel Neuer, as we all know, is an outstanding goalkeeper. But I think there's just something about Keylor Navas in the Champions League, and I would bet on him. So with these two teams, pretty well matched in terms of talent, pretty well matched in terms of form. Bayern maybe just edging it, but if Navas is in the sticks, like you say, I think I'd probably just put my money on them.
And I think as well, when you look at PSG, you've got Mbappe there up the top end of the pitch, and he's been quite outspoken with that this is what he wanted to do when he joined PSG. He wanted to push French football forward. Then you have players like Thiago Silva. There's all these different storylines with the PSG team that are all culminating in potentially winning this Champions League final. Who knows where Thiago Silva will end up? Will he end up Fiorentina? Will he end up going to Chelsea? You really just hope that they can all kind of it feels weird to say, but it's almost like the kind of the end of a certain type of PSG team, and then we'll see potentially kind of a new era of PSG going forward.
Very good point about Mbappe wanting to push the French league. I noticed after Lyon beat Manchester City, he tweeted pretty well done for the Farmers League or something. He's very proud of Lyon's performance of getting to the semi-final. Looking at the Bayern backline, Alaba for me, who is just, I think he's a left back when he plays centre midfield for Austria. I've seen him a few times against Ireland. I read an interview during the week with Mika Richards, the ex-Man City player who played alongside and trained with Jerome Boateng. And he said, look, if there's a one-on-one, the ball goes over the top and it's Boateng against Mbappe, there's only one winner. That would be said for most centre-halves in the world, but he said Boateng, he's not blessed with pace. His real skill is in the air in positional sense. Mbappe, Neymar, if they continue to play that high line, they're going to be so dangerous going forward, but then they're going to be so vulnerable against this amazing front three of PSG, which I think if they do, I really hope, like you said, Kev, that they go for it and both teams keep playing the way they've played. Don't change the system. It has the makings of an absolute amazing final. It could be because most of these finals just, sorry.
No, I mean, I think that's spot on. But you've got to remember as well, so many football games are decided by mistakes or just weird things happening. And I think it might be, the pace that you mentioned there. But honestly, it could be anything, couldn't it? And if you watch, since these, especially with these one-off games that we've been having, but since the Champions League resumed, one of the things that's been noticeable for me is just how many mistakes teams have been making. So you look at a team like Leipzig or whatever, playing the ball out from the back, but not just them. But it's happened over and over again. People trying to play a certain way and then just making mistakes. And there was a brilliant piece in the Spanish papers today by Jorge Valdano, who said, football is just so brilliant because you can think you understand it. You can think you know what's going to happen. And then Raheem Sterling misses an open goal from half a metre out. With, and that's what just happens. Exactly. And that's why we love football, isn't it? And that's why, the Champions League, I was, you made me playing that theme at the start. I just love that because hearing the Champions League anthem just puts the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. This thing about Die Meister, Die Besten, Les Grandes Équipes, the champions. Oh man, I just watched that and yes, because I want to see amazing football. Yes, I want to see Neymar do amazing things. I want to see this Bayern team play the way they can. But it might be that, but someone is probably just going to make a daft mistake as well. And the beauty of football is that's fine too.
Yeah, I think, if you talk about Boateng being able to clear things over the top, one thing that I really like of Mbappe is that he's so comfortable with the ball at his feet. For a front man to have so much pace and to glide across the pitch, essentially, he doesn't look as if he's really going that quickly until he knocks it past you and he's gone. There's not an awful lot of, I don't want to say flair, that's a bit unfair, but compared to, Di Maria or Neymar, he's just got that, I'm going to knock this ball past you and I'm going to get there first. And I do wonder if, Kimmich, Boateng can really, deal with him going into that channel. And even through the middle, Alba and Boateng potentially being in the centre-backs, it's going to be tough.
But because of the pace you just spoke about, Fino, is there a possibility that Bayern put Alphonso Davies on Mbappe, man-marking job? Because he's just so explosive, so dangerous. He's a little... reminds me a bit of the old Ronaldo, Brazilian Ronaldo, at the early years. When he was at PSV, when he was at Inter and Real. Just that turn of pace. I remember that fantastic game at Old Trafford. I think they beat them, was it 5-3 against Man United in the Champions League, and that was the Galactico team. But Ronaldo just turns, boom, he's gone. Mbappe reminds me a little bit of him. And then, of course, you've got Neymar. If PSG win this final and Neymar is the man, is he then on a par with or closer to Messi and Ronaldo, who are both getting old, let's be honest?
He's probably the best player in the world right now. I don't know if that's a popular opinion or not, but honestly, I think he's that good, and I think people are starting to see it again, and I think people are starting to see that he's not just he's not a selfish player. He's a real team player. I think we saw that, since the Champions League has resumed. I'm a big fan. I think it was really a sad day for Barcelona when they lost him. They didn't sell him. They were forced to sell him. I don't think it was, I think you can trace a lot of Barcelona's woes back to that moment and what they decided to do with that money, which for someone like me who was based in Spain for a long time and remembers what happened with Luis Figo, and it just brought these terrible memories back for me of what Barcelona did then when they got the Luis Figo money from Real Madrid and they squandered that money, and I think anyone would say Barcelona have done exactly the same thing this time with that money. But anyway, I think he's one of those players, Neymar. For whatever reason, he's controversial. For whatever reason, he doesn't have all that many admirers. Watching him this season, I think he's really turning into that player who really is, the GOAT, the inheritor of that crown, if you like, and like you say, with Messi and Ronaldo maybe just being over that summit now.
I think one thing that I've noticed with Neymar is he's happy. Like, he's actually playing with a bit more happiness, a bit more freedom. And I know that there was some comments in the press by his agent where, obviously now with the changes at Barcelona, whether or not he goes back or not, there's a lot of questions around that. And his agent simply said, why would he? He's happy. He's got his family and his friends around. I think the exact quote was, he's living in the city of lights. He's eating good French food. And he is the talisman for that team. And, why would he go back to Barcelona when he arguably has a better chance of more European success with PSG?
Some have billed this game as the best team in Europe against the best player in the world. Neymar against Bayern, but of course we all know that the PSG have a lot more talent than that. There's a possibility, like I said, Messi and Ronaldo, they're both getting old. I noticed, I didn't watch all of the Bayern Barcelona game, but I seen in the second half, it was Boateng, or it might have been Alaba or Kimmich, someone just basically ran back and a little shoulder, and Messi was pushed off the ball. He hasn't got the pace he has. Ronaldo's, is getting old. Could the new two, Messi and Ronaldo, could these superstars be on the one team in Neymar and Mbappe, and how scary would that be?
I think potentially. I do think, though, and I know that I've spoken a lot about PSG, I will start talking about Bayern here, is that Lewandowski has been phenomenal this season, and I think he's shown it time and time again, and I now start to feel like he's getting the recognition that he deserves. I do feel like he's probably front runner and will win the Ballon d'Or, or whatever the FIFA equivalent will be for this season. He's been phenomenal. He averages more than a goal a game, and for a number 9, that's, if you're a manager, you're going to be putting him in even if he's half fit, because he's going to guarantee you hopefully a goal.
Right, guys, we're going to come back in a couple of minutes and we're going to chat about our players. We picked our players each. Or Fino's been a bit greedy. He's picked more than one. Players to watch in the final. You are listening to the Football Hour with the Irishman, Englishman and Scotsman. Myself, JP, Fino and Kevin. We've just had a good chat about the preview of tonight's game, which we hope will be one of the games of the decade between Paris Saint-Germain and Bayern. And now we're running through our players to watch for tonight. And I've picked out, everyone loves the underdog, I picked out Serge Gnabry. And Gnabry, it's rags to riches story in a sense, if there is anything like that in football these days with all the money. But he went to Arsenal at 16, and he, under Arsene Wenger, who loves bringing these youth players through, and he's got a great reputation for bringing through players from foreign countries over to Arsenal who have been a success. He got injured and he was loaned to West Brom. And this is one of my favourite quotes I've seen this week. When he was at West Brom, he had one Premier League appearance under Tony Pulis. And then Tony Pulis came out and said, look, this guy's not ready for top flight football. And Arsenal shipped him off to Bremen, where he bangs in 11 goals. And that attracts the attention of the biggest dog in Germany, who's Bayern. But of course, this is not England, this is Germany. So Bayern signed this player who scores 11 goals from the wing for only 8 million euros. But of course, being the machine that Bayern are, they loan him out to Hoffenheim. He bangs in 10 goals in 22 games from the right wing, has an unbelievable season. And, he's just been a phenomenon. He's man of the match in the semi-final against Lyon. He's got 23 goals for the season. He scored 9 goals in 9 Champions League games this season. He destroyed Tottenham, and he got a few against Chelsea. He scored against Barcelona. He's just an unbelievable option now for Bayern, and for me, he's a new superstar.
Yeah, I think you look at Serge Gnabry's kind of career trajectory, and I think it basically paints the picture that sometimes it's just the wrong club at the wrong time, and you have a lot of fans that will look at people's goal scoring records, or will look at people's games played at a club and will immediately write them off when they've been signed. And I think actually what you start to see here is Bayern invested in him. They saw some potential, and now that it's starting to pay dividends.
Yeah, indeed. And there's lots of players on that Bayern team that, obviously Lewandowski's banged in 55 this season. You could have picked him or Muller. There's plenty of them that, that can tear you apart. But for me, Gnabry stands out because of the fact that he's just come from nowhere. And I actually looked at the Champions League game a few weeks ago, or maybe last year, I think it was, or the start of this season. I was like, is that the same Nabry that was at West Brom? And there he was, and now he's just this, starter in the team. And next season, they're going to have him on one wing and Leroy Sané on the other. How scary is that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'm actually going to pick another Bayern player, if that's all right, who I think we should all watch out for before we get on to PSG. But I think that's a great story. But you talked about other rags to riches stories anymore. But I think that another player for us to watch out for tonight, and I hope he does really well, is Alphonso Davies. I think he's a really interesting character as well. This is a guy whose parents, fled Liberia during the Civil War. He was born in a refugee camp in Ghana.
Wow.
Emigrated to Canada. I don't think his parents had even ever heard of Canada at that stage. And then came through that system via, a charity group working with inner city kids, gave him his first start, and then eventually moved to the Vancouver Whitecaps, and Bayern hear about him. I don't even know how. And he's turned into a player who I think we're all excited to see. He's one of these new breed of attacking fullbacks. I certainly don't think Barcelona knew what had hit them when they came up against him. And also, he's such an interesting, funny character as well. Anyone who's... I encourage all of you to follow him on social media because he's a really interesting guy. But yeah, I think he's extraordinary. He's got an extraordinary story. And at a time when there's a lot of nonsense and horrific things said about, immigrants, particularly in my home country of Britain at the moment as well. You see a story like this and you think about how all those things must have fallen into place for him just to be able to get the opportunity to show what talent he had. You see him now about to play in the Champions League final, and I think it's just an extraordinary thing.
When I seen the name first, Davies, I thought, is that a Welsh guy playing for Bayern Munich? Who is this guy? Just going back, Kev, you might remember this, but you mentioned the Vancouver Whitecaps. The only time I've ever heard of Vancouver Whitecaps, I think Peter Beardsley played for them at one time.
He played for them, but Bruce Grobbelaar came from Vancouver Whitecaps. So any Liverpool fan, certainly my age, will remember Bruce Grobbelaar. And yeah, that's where we signed him from, which is a curious thing.
Old jelly legs from Zimbabwe, yeah?
Well, we may get on to old finals in a little bit. So
we'll see. God. Fino, who have you got for us?
So, as you said earlier, I've been a little bit greedy and potentially a little bit predictable, but I've taken the front three of PSG. I look at the way that they play together is incredible. When all of them are firing on all cylinders, it's a joy to watch, and it feels really like they're all in sync at the moment. We've not talked about Di Maria at the moment. He had a phenomenal semi-final, scored one, set two up, and I think he's also a major. I'm maybe showing my kind of British sensibility towards football, but both Neymar and Di Maria are outballs. They can take the ball out onto the wing and they can dribble it and they can take it into the corner and they can allow their defence to have a bit of respite. And then they can also go at a man and really turn them inside and out. And Mbappe's there to, as I said, old-fashioned number 9, kind of knock the ball in the back of the net. And I feel like if they are at 75%, 80%, that Bayern back four are really going to be in a difficult position. And we talked about, potentially Davis having a man marking job. I feel like the final is probably not the time when you want to be making, different tactical decisions. We saw it with Guardiola against Lyon. He made a very different looking Man City team, and I think they really paid the price for that. So I think that the front three of PSG definitely will be. I'll be looking for goals. Put it that way.
I mean, spot on. And I like the fact that you highlighted Di Maria. I'm a big fan of Di Maria. I think he's a great player. I think again he had perhaps an unhappy spell. In England, he didn't particularly want to move to England. I don't know exactly how that happened. He seemed to just go out of favour around the trip, but he's a great player. Love to see this kind of slightly late career renaissance in a way. Although he was never a bad player, and I don't know how many times he's played for Argentina, 100 times or something for Argentina. This is a great player, sure. And again, totally open-minded about tonight. But if he were to have a good game, I'd be really happy as well.
Yeah, he's been so consistent. I mean, for me at Real Madrid, he was one of the best players. He just delivers consistently. He beats his man. He scores goals in midfield. He's a great supplier, great passer of the ball. His work rate is brilliant. He's a top international for Argentina. But then some of these players, when they go to a league like France, they've been accused of there for the wage packet and nice and easy. He's consistently delivered on the biggest stage in the Champions League every time. And then the same when the French Ligue 1 games are playing, League One, you know, he's there scoring goals. He's giving it socks every single time. So you got to give him credit as well. I think these three have worked better. You might agree, Fino, without the Cavani been there. Would it have been the same with Cavani? Different player?
Yeah, different player. And I think that's, you know, if you look at how interchangeable Neymar, Mbappe and Di Maria are, okay, Di Maria is maybe slightly less interchangeable. He can maybe only go right or left, maybe can't play through the middle. I feel like they all understand each other's movements, and it seems a little bit odd, but, you know, I just feel like they, you know, their second goal against Leipzig, it was just such crisp play that you're really looking for that to happen again tonight.
Right. Okay, guys, we have said earlier on we're going to just pick our favourite, each of us will pick our favourite ever Champions League game. Seeing it as it is the Champions League final, I'm going to throw you back to 1997. But just before the 1996, remember the Newcastle team under Kevin Keegan that had Alan Shearer and Les Ferdinand and Ginola and Batty and Rob Lee, and they're just tearing up the Premier League. Somehow, you know, threw it away, 12 points clear at Christmas. Then Keegan left after that, and Kenny Dalglish came in, and nobody was, you know, I'm nothing against Kenny Dalglish, but he won the league with Blackburn. But just some of the signings were very strange. Jon Dahl Thomason, you might remember him. Kevin was he was a Danish international, I think. He ended up playing for Milan after. John Barnes at the end of his career, Ian Rush at the end of his career. But basically, in the Champions League, they played Barcelona on a Wednesday night. I remember it was on ITV. And you've Che Given, Batty, like I said, and a crazy Colombian who was many people, Newcastle fans, you know, were so disappointed because we didn't need to sign him in January of that season because you had Alan Shearer and Les Ferdinand and these guys that, you know, Paul Kitson, you didn't need a Faustino Asprilla. Barcelona came to St. James's Park and they had some of the best players in the world. They're coached by Louis van Gaal. They had Michael Reisinger was a Dutch right back. He might have played for Rangers. I'm not sure. Maybe he didn't. But he definitely played for Barcelona. Rivaldo, you know, Nadal, the Spanish centre half. Yeah. Luis Figo, Luis Enrique. But they had, for me, the event that stood out was there was a Spanish left back and his name was Sergi. And he played for the national team, Barcelona, for about 10 years. And he was consistent, one of the best fullbacks in the world. Going back 2 years before that, Newcastle sold Andy Cole to Man United for $7 million, which wrecked everybody's head. It was so disappointing from a Newcastle point of view. But in return, they also got a guy from Northern Ireland called Kike Gillespie. That night, Kike Gillespie tore Sergi to shreds. He put the ball in the box again and again and again, and the crazy Colombian Faustino Asprilla scored a hat-trick. It was cloud nine for Newcastle. I never thought I'd see the day. Late goals by Luis Enrique and Figo were not enough, even though Rivaldo hit the bar late on. That for me stood out as my favourite Champions League game of all time. No prizes for guessing what Kevin's game is going to be.
Well, actually, you might be surprised. I was just going to say, actually, I was living in Madrid at the time of that game, and I remember watching it. And I remember loads of Real Madrid fans telling me we're all Newcastle fans tonight. That was absolutely amazing. Yeah, no. You asked us about this, and I thought a little bit. Yeah, and of course, you know, 2005. You know, Liverpool versus Man was one of the great football games ever. But two things for me. That night I was working, so I was in the stadium and I was reporting for Reuters that night. So it was really hard work, incredibly stressful. So I didn't exactly enjoy it in a way that you always do as a fan. Watching it back later, of course, you know you do. But at the time, I couldn't say I really enjoyed it. And also, you know, because it was such a humiliation in the first half. You know, I'm not even sure I would call it, you know, that much of an enjoyable experience because for 45 minutes it was terrible. And then, of course, yeah, for 45 minutes it was amazing. And then for 30 minutes during extra time, it was just, you know, a white knuckle ride. It was just horrific. And then the penalties, of course, were great. But, you know, in all honesty, if I was being super, super honest, actually my favourite is going back to 1984 when Liverpool beat Roma in Rome, in their stadium. And again, that was another game that finished on penalties. It was 1-1, and Liverpool managed to turn, you know, pull off something extraordinary, I think, to beat Rome in their own stadium on a really warm night. And that was the one I enjoyed most. I was relatively young at the time, but I have to say that sort of performance. Sometimes it's about goals, Sometimes it's about adrenaline. Sometimes it's about just crazy, like we said before, two teams just going at it. But I think sometimes when you're a kid as well, there's just something about I don't know. It just felt that the Liverpool were almost destined to win it. It felt to me at that time, and I felt just watching it. And you mentioned the spaghetti legs of Bruce Grobbelaar at the end and so on. It was just one of those things that, for pure enjoyment, I really enjoyed that. And the other curious thing about that, Alan Kennedy, who probably no one remembers anymore, scored the winning goal in 2 European Cup finals, and he's popped in the last penalty there on that night. So yeah, extraordinary achievement.
Wow, I'm a little bit younger than you, Kev, but I might have watched him. Was he at left back?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Okay,
and he'd done it against Real Madrid as well. So he scored the winner in 1981 in the final. So again, if I was going to choose, again, I remember that very well as a kid. Watching that, but yeah, 2 terrible games actually. Let's not forget. Sorry, I just wanted to keep coming back to this. European Cup finals are often absolutely awful. Of course, if you've got a dog in the hunt, and of course, if you really, you enjoy them in a way if you win at the end. But often they're terrible. We all hope tonight's going to be different.
We hope so. Kev, you actually surprised me. I was full sure you were going to pick Istanbul. Now, we are saying Champions League games, but of course, Fino's team were in the European Cup. But we let that go this time. Who have you got, Fino?
Well, actually, they're both from the Champions League.
Really?
If you look at the Champions League logo, you'll see the however many stars there are. One of those stars is Rangers FC. Yep. I'll let you know for a fact. I've got 2 because one of them is is a personal thing. My first ever football game was a Rangers Champions League game. So me, my dad, my brother, all go into the game together. That first. Everyone's had that first glimpse of going into a stadium, and a stadium such as Ibrox is quite a daunting thing as a young kid. But if I was to look back on however long I've been alive for, this was only a few months after I was born, but the Battle of Britain, Rangers against Leeds, the champions of England against the champions of Scotland in 92-93, has to be arguably Rangers' best Champions League result. Okay, we won the Cup Winners' Cup in 72, but that was a phenomenal Leeds team. You're looking at McAllister, Speed, Gordon Strachan, Eric Cantona, and Rangers were written off. They were torn to shreds in the English press beforehand, and they won 2-1 both legs. McCoist and Haitley at Ellen Road. There's that brilliant diving header that every Rangers fan will know exactly which goal I'm talking about. If I run through that team, you're talking Andy Gorham, great Scottish goalkeeper. Ian Durrant, a phenomenal player who probably should have gone on and done greater things than he was allowed to do because of injury. McCoist, still I think only the only Scottish person to win the European Golden Boot. Everything about that season was so good. They went on a 44 unbeaten game run that season. The kits are a classic. The fans still use those big 3-striped Adidas kits, and obviously it's part of that legendary 9 in a row kind of season, 9 in a row stretch. So yeah, I would say that's probably beating the Kings of England on their own patch is definitely something as a Scotsman.
I think one other I'd just pick out, that was pretty cool. One other final that I'd just pick out, and the last one. I know we've had some decent finals lately, but I think 2011 Barcelona against Man United as well was really good. That was at Wembley.
Was that 2-1?
That was the 3-1 one.
3-1, was it?
Yeah, and that was just one of those games where, again, it was a funny one because I think Man United could have come into that and could have been really defensive. That was a very good Barcelona team, right?
Yeah, I actually
very good.
Yeah,
and all I was going to say was, I think some Man United fans now, you could look back at it, you could sort of say, well, why didn't they do a bit more just to try to disrupt Barcelona? Why did they sort of try to play football against them? And arguably they shouldn't, but actually because they ended up really getting hammered really for the second time in 2 or 3 years, wasn't it? But Barcelona are an extraordinary machine, and I think at the time that was probably the absolute peak of it. And I do remember that as just thinking, wow, that's a pretty damn good football club. And when I look at Barcelona now, it almost makes me cry thinking about how bad they are now.
Yeah, Kev gets another chance to put the boot into Man United. I do remember that. Actually, I won the bet quite easily. I was very confident that Barcelona would win. United, I think they beat Schalke over 2 legs in the semi-final, and then there was no contest really. Rooney scored a goal, but Messi was the star, and Barcelona were convincing winners.
Yeah. Okay,
guys, we're now moving on to basically the state of football at the minute, and the new Champions League style is a little bit of a throwback, back to the days of old European Cup games, where the new format is a one-off game. Is it good? Is it bad? No fans? Fino?
I have to say, I much prefer as a neutral. I find often that I'm watching quarterfinals, semi-finals of teams that there's always been that huge bugbear for a lot of fans that don't have allegiances to major European teams, where it's always the same teams in these games. It's always usually 2 or 4 Spanish or English teams, maybe a French team, maybe a German team, whatever it is. And I think what you've seen this year is, 2 German teams, 2 French teams in the semis. It feels like there's a bit of a change in the tide here, I think. No fans, not ideal, but I really also enjoy this kind of bubble atmosphere that they've created in Lisbon for the Champions League and in Germany for the Europa League. I do wonder whether or not we would have seen a different final had it been the traditional two-legged affair.
I think you might be right, and it's been interesting in that sense. So sure. But, I don't know. I just think there's something special about those home and away European nights. And I think I was talking before, picking out finals and also talking about 2005 and saying, I can't even remember enjoying it all the way through because the first half was so, humiliating for Liverpool. But there's just something about, having one of those away legs after you've lost the home legs. And if I'm being really honest, I was picking out finals there where I talked about, but my absolute favourite Champions League game must have been like the Liverpool semi-final against Barcelona last time, where they overturned the 3-0 and won 4-0 and, corner taken quickly at Origi, which, still makes, again, stand up on the bone. So again, I would be very sorry to lose the home and away. I think, from those quarterfinals and semi-finals, I think it would be very sad.
Well, financially, it's huge for clubs as well to get that game at home, and also look at Tottenham to get to the final last season against Ajax. They were dead and buried. Got a goal in the last minute. Just moving on. Manchester City, for me, that was the final. I picked it out a month ago. Man City and Bayern. How on earth does a team this good to play such good football? Okay, they're missing Aguero, but lose to Lyon. It's bonkers.
I think Kevin spoke about it earlier. It's always football's decided on mistakes. It's not a perfect thing that you can, scientifically analyze to the nth degree. There's always an element of randomness. And I personally feel like Pep's teams are trying to beat football. They're trying to make it so that if we have the ball for 85 minutes and we pass it in these directions, that we're always going to win. And yes, you can do that for 85% of the games, 90% of the games, but there's always going to be that 40-yard screamer. There's always going to be that own goal. And I feel like they often get in their own heads when things don't go their way. But then you look at Man City throughout this season. I mean, they lost to relegated Norwich. Okay, not at that time, but they didn't have their greatest season this season.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's something we talked about this last time, right? That Liverpool went into the season last time thinking we just have to find a way to win every time. I think you've hit on something there about Man City. They don't always do that. It's almost like, they're craving perfection somehow. And Pep Guardiola thinks there is a perfect way to play. And I remember, not many people remember him as a player, but I saw him as a player quite a lot. And he was like that as a player as well. I remember Arsene Wenger after a Champions League game coming into the press room and saying in the first half, Guardiola was technically perfect in the way he played. So what we had to do was in the second half, we had to stop the ball getting to Guardiola in the first place. That was the only way we could play them. And he's taken that over into his managership, where he sort of thinks there must be this perfect way of tackling the game of football. It's really interesting what you said there.
It seems to be a bit of a psychological thing, though. These huge games, like a couple of years ago, they were against Real Madrid in the semi-final. I think it was 0-0 going into the second leg in Madrid, and they just didn't seem like they really tried. But then they'll come out, and I think if they play Lyon 10 times, they're going to win 8, possibly 9. But is it psychological? What is it?
I don't know. It's that, isn't it? It's 999 times out of 1,000. Raheem Sterling, nets that goal, doesn't he? And that's just the one time it doesn't. And maybe that's it. Guardiola relies too much on the kind of, the percentages going in his favour, but there will always be that time when it doesn't.
It's like there's no plan B. It's like Guardiola sets his team up and goes, okay, cool, this is what it's going to be. And if it doesn't work, then we're just going to do plan A better. And then there's no, it's very, I assume, I'm not a professional scout or analyst, but I assume that it's very easy to then plan for that. And of course, they've got some of the world's best players that can outplay those blocks or whatever it is. But then you also have the flip side where you go into a game against Lyon, which is a one-off game, and you change things and you change things so much that it feels totally alien to the players. And the first goal for Leon was amateur. It was amateur defending. Kyle Walker was all sorts of out of position, trudging back, and then the keeper poor clearance, and Leon took advantage of it, and fair play to them because as you said, 9 times out of 10 they don't escape with a victory.
Indeed, Fino, and of course I believe that was a game of 2 legs. There'd be only one winner, and that'd be Man City. So the one-off has brought brilliant unexpected results. You're live on Radio Fabrique at 107.5 FM and broadcasting around the world on radiofabrique.at. It's 10 minutes to the hour of 2 o'clock. We've got 10 minutes left with you guys. Thank you for tuning in. We're just going to quickly run into the Premier League, which will start back on September the 12th. So by the time our next show, next month, the Premier League will be underway. Before we go into it, I'd just like to talk a little bit about a crazy thing I read this week about Harry Maguire. Arrested in Greece, and he got knocked out of the Europa League semi-final at Man United, and straight away he's going on holiday. This guy he's a captain of Manchester United. I think he's captain England, you said, Kevin. He's an ambassador for the sport. All these Man United kids are looking up to him, and he does stuff like this. Will he ever play for United again?
It's not a good look. Without knowing the full ins and outs of the situation, it's very difficult to say definitively, whether or not his United career is done. I would like to hope that the truth will come out, and we'll know in the fullness of time whether or not he's in the right or in the wrong. It's not a good look, though.
He's not a 21-year-old Jack Grealish. He's 27. He cost £80 million. Really.
He should know better.
Yeah, indeed. So the Premier League returns. Kev, for me, it's Liverpool and Man City again.
I suppose, yeah, it's hard to look beyond them. I think with Liverpool, it's like, what do they do now? Like I said last time, they went into last season rather, saying, we have to win every game because they felt that Man City were there, and that was the only way they were going to topple them, was this, not perfection in terms of the performance, but perfection in terms of the results. What do you do when you think that's maybe not the case? Is an interesting thing for me, because the psychology is just a bit different, right? The motivation is just a bit different. So how do they tackle this season, especially when the first 3 games of the season are this really tricky first opening game against Leeds? Leeds and Liverpool have a lot of history going back over the years. Then I think their next 2 games are Arsenal and Chelsea. And you sort of think, wow, that is not the easiest start for a defending champion. In a way, maybe it's good. You've got 3 really big games and you can be really psyched up for it. And no one knows how the season is going to start because of the fact that we've had so little in terms of a pre-season. So it's so unusual. The teams haven't been off going around the US, or they haven't been to the Far East this time or whatever. Very difficult, very interesting, I think, start to the season. We'll know a lot by the time we're on the air next time.
Yeah, pressure on Liverpool as champions for the first time in 30 years. But of course, they went into last season as European champions. Chelsea, I think, will invest. There will be signings before then. Of course, in the next month or so, players will come in. But the big thing with Liverpool for me, I think, this season is there is no fear of Suarez going to Barcelona. These big Spanish teams, I mean, because of the wages in the Premier League now, maybe it's just the lure of a Real Madrid because it's they're Galactico and it's Real Madrid, they might go. But a Salah or, for me, Mane, I think is the best of the 3, just so influential. Firmino, one of those guys go, but I don't think that that worry is there now for Liverpool fans.
I think that's right, and I think that's really huge. I think you're absolutely right, and again now, why would they want to leave right now? And I think you look at a team that's built in a slightly different way, like Barcelona, where it feels like some of the players maybe have too much power. Some of those great big players are almost the ones, who don't necessarily have to run as much as the young kids and stuff like that. And I prefer to look at a Bayern Munich or a Liverpool where you feel like everyone on that team is equal. Everyone has to put in the same amount of effort. Everyone cares exactly as much as each other. The big names, the small names, the kids going through, there's that competition going through. And I think that's the nice way to run a club.
I think Chelsea will be a surprise package. It all depends on how Frank Lampard lines his team up, but there's already been all the rumours about Havertz going to Chelsea. That seems to have been quite a protracted transfer saga, but with Ziyech from Ajax and Timo Werner as well, they're looking pretty strong in attack, and I think we'll see very early on, as you talk about those 3 games that Liverpool have, whether or not they're up to the mettle again to kind of reclaim or to retain the title.
Yeah, I think Man City need another striker. I mean, Jesus bangs in the goals. He doesn't seem to have the same influence as Aguero. And I said, going into the Champions League to the last the month ago, if Aguero was fit, I thought they had a great chance of winning it. Without him, I thought, possibly Bayern. That's is a big loss, but they need somebody else. But who do you get? Who's available?
The issue is that they've also lost David Silva, and that's a huge amount of experience and a huge amount of that winning mentality of City over those years that is irreplaceable. Liverpool haven't had that talisman loss as Man City have, so I think it's really going to be tough.
And I think as well, we saw it last time, didn't we? Vincent Kompany left. And his loss was really felt by Man City, and I wonder if David Silva will be the same, like you say.
For sure.
I really hope this does not happen, but Alan Saint-Maxime at Newcastle for me he's the new Mane, and if he goes to a bigger team, he's going to give a huge boost to if it's a Liverpool or a Man City. Right, guys, we are nearing the end of the show. Thank you for listening. We'll be back again on the 4th Sunday of next month. Enjoy the final tonight. We hope you enjoyed the preview. Kevin, thanks for coming.
Absolute pleasure as always. Love to talk about European football especially. It's been great for me.
And Fino, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks again for having me on.
Right, guys, this is Radio Fabrique 107.5 FM, and we're broadcasting around the world on radiofabrique.at. This has been the Football Hour, or we should call it the Irishman, the Scotsman, the Englishman, talking about football. We're going to leave you with a very fitting song on this Champions League final evening. We hope you enjoyed the game tonight.